a warning before we start the video. I am currently drinking these, which looks as it actually tastes, therefore disgusting. And I am gonna have green mustache at some points because I can't find my straw. I looked everywhere, I can't find one. So I'm drinking these and it's pretty wide. So I'm getting green mustache and I will be filming these with green mustache, and that's how it is, okay? You're forewarned, you know what you're getting yourself into. I have not done one of these in 5 months, and yeah, this year has been absolutely crazy, and I have unfortunately not read many comics, and I really miss it. It's just that technically speaking, I'm not even reading many books, just because life has been absolutely crazy busy, and the only time I can read is 1 hour before bedtime, and usually I am too tired to pick up a comic because my eyes are too tired. And when you read a comic, well, of course you want to enjoy the art, right? So I am currently too tired to read comics, but in the last 5 months I did read a few, and I have also completed a series, and my chair is just going this way. I just need to keep pushing myself the other way. And so we're gonna go from the least enjoyable to the most enjoyable read, but again, take this with a pinch of salt because I really enjoy my comics. Usually I really have a good time. This was not different. I am hoping to get some more relaxed time during Christmas, so be able to kind of potentially read a bit more. We'll have to find a way to kind of carry comics with me when I'm on the go, and so I can read them during the day when I'm not too tired. I'll figure it out. But yeah, I hope to read more in the future, but I don't want to make promises to then having to break them, so we will see how it goes. So let's start with the one that I absolutely enjoyed while I was reading it. It's always fun, it's always a good time, and I believe I gave it 4.5 stars to 5 stars. So amazing time while it lasts, but I tend to forget a lot what happens, and I had to kind of go through it very quickly now before sitting down because I didn't exactly remember all the issues. It's very episodic. This is Rick and Morty. You know, I'm a big fan of Rick and Morty, and I am enjoying, you know, my read through the comics. I think there are 12 volumes or a bit more out, and that's it for the moment. So always entertaining. I particularly loved in this volume the Mind Blowers episode. So I think, if I remember correctly, it's kind of this episode where Morty has a chance to look at other choices that he had made in the past, and then that Rick changed, and the consequences of that choices. And I thought something along those lines, don't quote me on this, has been 5 months now, but I remember really enjoying that concept, and I found that part of the story particularly entertaining. But yeah, it must also be said that Rick and Morty, ultimately when I sit down, I do not have too much to say apart from it is what it is, just a good time, and therefore because it does not usually warrant such a big discussion, or it doesn't really make me go into my thoughts too much, it is again just a good time. It also takes away a bit of, you know, when I put this in a scale from the least enjoyable to the most enjoyable one, because I got less thoughts attached to it, it tends to go to the bottom. But again, I did enjoy it throughout. And the other ones I must put, please don't take this wrong, because I did really enjoy actually volume 16 of One Piece, slightly less volume 17. However, they also did not stand the test of time that well, because until I reread my written review, I did not remember exactly what had happened in these volumes. Volume 16, I particularly enjoyed how Oda does his character back history. I really find, like, Nami story broke my heart, as all of us. It's a very famous background story that those volumes are so intense and so cherished by so many. And in this one we get the background story of Chopper and a couple of other characters that we have met in the last few volumes, and being able to, the background stories are so powerful, so well done, together with Luffy, amazing, or Luffy, I don't remember anymore, personality. I love his personality, and I love how this is truly like good versus bad. Like, it's neat, the distinction, I think, especially in Luffy. I'm gonna call it Luffy, okay? You can insult me in the comments on below if I'm pronouncing it not correctly. But Luffy's personality is such a good character. He always stands his ground for his friends and for his values. So there is not a morally great character, right? And even if you look at his crew, yes, they might play the bad boys at times, but ultimately we know that it's good versus evil. And the way it's done here, the way it's explored, I really enjoy it. I do have the critique overall of the action scenes. I don't think they're well done. I'm sorry, I just don't think they are. So this one that had way more action in it, I just ended up enjoying it less because I get more confused. But I did like, and I don't want to spoil anything in case someone is not ready, but basically Luffy does something to convince a character to join them, and the way he goes about it, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, it's not a last place. I think probably gave it 4 stars or 3.5 and 4 stars or something of the sort. I have noticed that I've not read the One Piece volume in now almost 2 months, so I do need to continue on with the story. Next, I would put Demon Days. Now, this is by Peach Momoko. I had I had hauled these quite recently, and I'm just going to show you some of the art because it is absolutely stunning. So this is it's a Marvel comic, and it's a superhero that I wasn't familiar with. Her name is actually Mariko, and you do have a couple of bad guys from the other Marvel, very famous Marvel universe, and I experienced this mostly positively because of the art, and also ultimately I did enjoy the main story. The art more than the story in itself, honestly speaking. However, I must say that the main plot, although superficial, it did work well. It is a story where, you know, you have a main character going through a tragic loss, and a few years after she has to go on a path of revenge. And the way this story is a bit superficial, as many superhero stories can be, not all of them, but some can be quite superficial. And with superficial I mean that the trauma, as in many of the stories, is used as a catalyst to fuel the battle prowess of a main character. But you know what? You add in amazing art with a cool overall, more than a few, you know, known characters, a few new ones that are overall quite cool, and it just worked its magic, and it did. Now, would I continue on? Potentially, I'm not sure. I didn't close this down. I thought, oh, I want more. It is quite self-contained, and I did not particularly enjoy the first story. There is a kind of a short story at the beginning, although some of the characters are recurring then in the main story, and there is like a couple of short stories in the end, or one, which I enjoyed a bit more. But I don't feel the need of more, but I'm happy I've read these, and I might revisit it at one point, just because again the art was absolutely stunning. I really enjoyed the art style. They're also quite fresh. I'm not used to this art style. Now the next two are actually my Halloween reads. Apologies if I've got my mustache. I just finished my green awful juice. And so I read a couple of things during Halloween. Actually, these I read on Halloween day. I believe I finished it the last day of October. And this is a reread for me. Lip Hook is a comic that I read before. It's a standalone, and it's about these two shady individuals that are escaping from something. They get to this town that's surrounded by fog, and they get to an inn just to, you know, seek shelter for the night, and they end up spending some days in the town, and the town and its occupants are very, very weird. And this was creepy and the absolutely perfect Halloween read. Sorry, my chair is saying, bitch, we're going this way. So the art style in this story speaks for itself. The art style is what makes this the perfect Halloween story. I did enjoy the story as I did the first time. I don't think it's groundbreaking or anything. It's just about this spooky town where once you get in, you can't get out. What's going on there? There is perversion, there is a bit of violence, and all the good stuff you want during Halloween. But truly what makes this the perfect read for this time of the year, spooky, creepy, wintry and cold, is the art style. The art style set the tone and keeps the tone throughout the story. Now, I'm not saying that the story itself wouldn't, but I'm just saying that the art style is what really makes it work as, you know, that much. Like, look at this. So yeah, I had a very good time. The next one I also read during the Halloween period. I was literally a week in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and I was scared at night, and so I thought, let me also read graphic novels that are quite horrorish. And I read Emily Carlo, that didn't come out right at all. Emily Carroll's new book, I believe it's her new book, but correct me if I'm wrong, A Guest in the House. Now, Emily Carroll is my favorite Halloween read, period. And so when I saw this on Amazon for, well, not cheap at all, I just said, listen, it's Emily Carroll. I'm going away for a few days. I want to be able to read something by my beloved Emily Carroll. I absolutely love her art style. Now, her plots are not bad at all. But what I've noticed with her stories is that ultimately I might forget in time the plots, but I do still remember how enjoyable it was the experience of just turning the page and seeing more of her art. And that is no different. This is something that she did completely in black and white and tones of grey. So whereas there is no color that I can think of apart from a couple of pages which actually are very colorful. So you might get something like this. And then all the rest is mostly black and white. And then you got this kind of intermezzo or breaks with colors, which works very well. Of this one, this is the story of a woman who marries this man who has lost his wife, and they had a child together. The child is approaching teenagehood, and they live in this house near the lake. And this woman that has now married this man, she starts to hear and see odd things, and she starts to try to put together the pieces of what happened to the previous wife. And I enjoyed this a lot throughout the story. The only thing I must say is that while it felt slightly less ephemeral than compared to other stories by Carroll, which I enjoyed, but they do feel quite flimsy. I don't know how to express it, like kind of vague, and they're very vague endings. I enjoyed this a lot because I thought it was a bit more solid, as a story was more tangent. You could definitely see the things were actually happening. But then we get to the end, and then it's very sharp, and we kind of go back into that interpretive, open to interpretation to a certain degree, but also like, you know, a bit like abrupt, like, oh, this happened, and was like, what's next? And we are not told, and we will never be told, because this is standalone, as all the other Emily Carroll's book I've read. So didn't particularly love the experience of the ending, although I do not mind the ending. It's such like a complex bunch of feelings I've got here. I don't know, because I did in inside like it. I just wished we had a bit of the aftermath, maybe. I think it's a bit rushed, and because the story moves quite slow, to have like such a banger for an end, yeah, and they just curtain down, and you got the end titles on the screen. It's like, oh, okay. But it was a choice. I guess it was a choice of how to, you know, to write story. Slowly, boom, bye. But yeah, would I suggest it? Still, yes, of course. If you love Emily Carroll's work, I would definitely suggest these. As any of her other works by her. I think, again, it was a great read for Halloween. Very, very moody. My favorite thus far, I mean, my favorite, I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's the first one I've read, is Through the Woods. It's a small here. But yeah, happy I read these. I will purchase anything else she does because I love her art style. Okay, next one, a definite success, and this is Banana Fish, and you can see the back, and my chair is saying let's go here, and I'm saying no. Okay, this is, I actually need to pull myself. Banana Fish, first volume. I really love, like, they're all yellow, like it's a very odd choice of color for the cover, but they're all yellow, and I'm just thinking, if I purchase all of them, they're gonna be like, that's a lot of yellow to have on my shelves, and I'm not the biggest fan of yellow, but whether. Banana Fish has been surprising. It's not what I was expecting. I did not expect to be thrown into this kind of alternative America, where you have a sort of Padrino, modern Padrino style story, and you follow this young man who's, from my understanding, is kind of being raised by a mafia boss who's not really his father, I believe. And he's a sharpshooter, he's an amazing shooter, is a very dangerous young man who has a gang underneath him and is trying to get out of the influence or of the power of the main mafia boss. And then you are thrown in with the police, and is it a journalist at some point, and his helper slash eventual love interest? I don't know. All I know for now is that there are a lot of elements coming together. We start with the Vietnam War, if I remember correctly, and there is this mystery of a banana fish. And I did not expect that. I was like, what is that? I want to know more. And then we jump and we have Ash, our main protagonist, who's this gangster, 17 years old gangster, very cool, handsome boy going around making messes, and it's like a, you know, these gangs kind of fighting each other. It reminded me a lot of when I used to play the Padrino on PlayStation 2, and I was so much into that game. I didn't sleep at night because I wanted to finish it, and somehow it's very different. It's different, but also I had the same vibes to a certain degree, I don't know. So I really enjoyed it because I think it brought me back in time a bit. And also this is a manga that took me a long time to read. Not because of anything wrong with it. It's just because the dialogues are lengthy. Like, it's a manga that actually has a lot of dialogue. It actually is longer than you might think. And, you know, just by reading through all of these and trying to put together the pieces, because there are a bunch of secrets and stuff we need to figure out, it was really fun. So I do plan to go ahead, because first of all, I want to know what happened. We are left on a cliffhanger. What happens next? So definitely continue on because of that. I also am intrigued about Ash and this boy, so I'm really curious to see what happens there. And the banana fish thing, like, what is that? There are 19 volumes or 21 volumes of these. So I'm like, what are you gonna throw at me? Like, I'm actually genuinely curious to see what is the main body of the series is gonna be, because I just read the first volume. So let me know if you read it. Let me know what are your feedback. Is it worth continuing on? Because I definitely wanted to at least try another couple of volumes, and thus far I do plan to read it, but I do hope it doesn't go downhill, and I would love to hear your feedback without any spoilers. Okay, then we get into the territory of they were so bloody good, these ones. So Lady Mechanica, I read volume 6 and volume 7. Now I'm going to speak about them separately because I had kind of different opinions about them. So starting with volume 6, I'll show you some of the art. And I swear this chair, it's driving me crazy. Just want to show you some of the art. I'm going to go through a couple of some pictures so you can appreciate. So Lady Mechanica, this is a steampunk fantasy series where you follow Lady Mechanica. She is a woman who wakes up one day. We do not know what happened to her, but she has some mechanical parts and she needs to go on this journey of finding out who did this to her, what happened to her, how come she woke up this way. And in between, she goes and defeats bad guys around. So this volume 6, I truly enjoyed. I found that we start with a heartbreaking story. We're starting with our heart getting taken and squished, and so following then the rest, what happens after. Of course, it was kind of was very invested. I also enjoy that there is one of my favorite characters that appear not very often, that does make an appearance in here, and that toward the end we're starting to get more hints on, okay, finally maybe we are approaching the point where we get some background history and answers on Lady Mechanica's own story, own origin story. And I must say that one critique overall that I had thus far in volumes is that for how much these tries, I don't think it really gets to the depth of other fantasy stories, comics in this case. I can compare it only to comics because that wouldn't be fair otherwise. It kind of never reaches the depth that other grimdark or bloody violent fantasy stories kind of always felt short of meeting that level of depth I particularly love. And while this is true for these, I also saw a bit of more hints of, okay, we are getting potentially a bit more there, and so that was kind of hopeful for me. And indeed what happens is that when we get to volume 7, and I adore this is very horrific. This is probably the most bloody I have Lady Mechanica B seen thus far, and I loved it. This I would call it, like, it was almost like a horror volume, like a fantasy horror volume, as you can see from the cover, and I loved it. I think we get so much answers. We do get the origin story. The majority of the origin story I think we kind of cover, or at least we get the first main part of the origin story of Lady Mechanica. And going through that, the viciousness of it, the trauma that Lady Mechanica had to go through, finally we are meeting the depth that I was hoping for. Finally, a volume that did not fall short. It was probably a 5 stars for me. I adored it. Now, I do not know what happens next, because I believe that these volumes were kind of published, self-published to a certain extent, and now they're being picked up by a main publisher. But I'm waiting to know what happens next. I need to know. However, I do have scant news on the future of this series. If you know more, please let me know in the comments down below, because I'm really invested now. I do want to continue on, and I don't know when we can expect the next volume. Finally, Lady Mechanica can enter the this is actually an amazing series realm with these. Let's see how it continues on. I hope it's not one-off, otherwise I do not know. But volume 7, my favorite, hands down my favorite Lady Mechanica volume. Now, the number 2 and 1, to be fair, I could put them on the same level, so really take this with a pinch of salt. Number 2, I'm gonna put the series I finished. So I did read from volume 16 to volume 23, Doradoro. I finished, I've read all Doradoro. I am mourning, I am grieving since then. I have been missing it a lot. Now, there is also part of in my head, there is a voice screaming, because I had filmed shortly after finishing the whole thing a spoilery filled review of the whole series. I do have a hint that I might have erased it from my computer and camera by mistake. So if that's the case, I might have to redo it. Volume 16 to 23, I went back to back. I was reading 1 volume a day, or 1 volume a week at least, and I made my way through it. And I must say that there were some volumes that I was generally jumping on the chair. Like, I was generally just so enthralled by the story, so into the story, I just couldn't stop reading, and I would pick up the next volume immediately. So I don't want to spoil my spoilery filled review, but also if you don't want to hear spoilers, so you want to know what I thought about the series, is Doradoro is ultimately one of my favorite series that I've read thus far, but, and there is a but, I do not think the end was handled as well as it could have been. I have some grievances with the end. Ultimately, I had such an amazing time throughout that the end happened in a way where a lot of my characters that I've cherished and loved, we really don't get to spend much time with them. They're such like a major part of the story, and then kind of, oh, okay, so this is how all came together, and that's it. And so yeah, I think I wished the end had taken more of its time. I think the end was a bit rushed, and if it had just maybe 1 volume more, we would have rounded up in a more comprehensive way, in my opinion. So for how much I did like overall, I think the direction of the story, the meaning behind everything, it made sense. I think, in hindsight, thinking back, I wished she had developed it slightly different. I believe so. I do think that at the very end, when I jotted down my thoughts immediately, I also thought that a couple of things about how it all turned out to be, I had to be like, I don't know how this works, but I can't now I don't seem to have retained those grudges for, 3 months after having actually finished the series. I do still, though, remember clearly that we do not spend enough time in the end with my beloved characters. Things do wrap up too quickly, and you can't give so much space and make certain characters such big parts of the movement that leads you to the very end, and then they do nothing, and then yeah, okay, they're fine, they're in their house doing whatever. And I'm like, what? Like, I think there was potential for a better ending, but spoiler review coming up soon. And then on number 1. Now this is number 1 because of especially volume 5. So I've read volume 5, 6 and 7. Volume 7 was good, but not as good as volume 5, and I believe volume 6, but specifically volume 5, yeah, amazing. And I am talking about Vagabond. I have read volume 5, and this series has been kind of floating around, like, you know, in the realm of 4 stars, 4.5, 4.25, 4, and here we hit the 5 stars. And I was so touched by this. I read this in summer. I read these probably before I've read any of the other things on this list, and I still remember some of the moments in this. It's one of those things that I wish I could go back and relive this experience because it was so powerful. Because when we get to Kojiro and Jizai's story, when we go and look at their origin story, how they met each other and how they, you know, they lived together and what happens, it just punched me. It just punched me in the heart, and I will never forget this. I must say, I do have a soft spot for characters like Jizai, characters that seems to apparently have given up on life. They have no goals, they have no dreams or hopes for the future. They are breathing, but they're not really alive. And then at some point, something changes, and they do have to find the strength to live, to uphold their values. And Jizai's character, even more than Kojiro, Jizai's character is probably my favorite character of Vagabond thus far, because I really could connect with that part of, well, life has no purpose, what's the point now, I'm just gonna give up, and then something happens and you do not give up and you kind of find the strength and the resilience to go on. And the reason why is because of, you know, love and of valuing something above your own, well, what's the point? And, you know, when you reach that point in life when you're so down, when you do not see the point of life, and something can spark that, well, even if you do not see the point, you're still gonna go ahead because of the love you have of this person, or because you can see a different future for this person from what you're experiencing. That's so powerful that it really moved me. The thing with Vagabond is that it's like reading, yes, a manga, but also it's like watching a movie. I don't know, the way it can communicate facial expression, the way even it creates these kind of landscapes and atmosphere, somehow I really immerse myself in it. I'm really in it. I'm like reading a movie. I don't know how this makes sense. I promise, in my mind it does. It's such a masterful art style. The way it can portray facial expression, it's not that easy. I think I've never read a manga where I felt like so much like I was watching a movie. Berserk came very close. Gun in my head, I would not be able to choose between Vagabond and Berserk art style. I just generally wouldn't. But also before reading Vagabond, I thought that nothing could beat Berserk art style. And I'm not saying that Vagabond can, but I'm saying that Vagabond is matching. It's a different story, it's a different vibe. You're following this historical fiction, reimagined story of a real life samurai that existed in Japan, and now he became kind of this master at sword fighting and his journey through that. Now this is fictionalized, but again, it's a very different story than Berserk, grim fantasy. But I can't tell you which art style I prefer more. It's how much I love them both. So volume 5 broke me. I also love the fact that we are getting like a whole volume, like 3 volumes actually, because this is 3 combined, of telling us the main, so you follow the story, the origin story of the main antagonist of our protagonist. And I thought that was so necessary. I think it's, if you really want me to cherish and be invested in the fight, let me see both sides. And I think that's also what I loved about Doradoro, right? So Doradoro is a story, you know, you've got the bad guys, you've got the good guys, which is very much mashed up by the end of everything you want, but she takes the time to tell me about the stories of all the parties involved. And he's doing the same, so then now I'm so invested in both his characters, I'm gonna be distraught no matter what happens next, right? Now, volume 6 wasn't as successful as volume 5 was. Main reason was because Jizai, he is not that present in this volume. Now we are following more Kojiro. And Kojiro, I find myself more of a bystander, more an observant of him rather than actually an admirer. I do believe, and I, you know, not to diagnose anybody, because also I can't diagnose anybody because I'm not a clinical psychologist, but just to say, for the little I've seen of Kojiro and the little I know about sociopaths is very close. Is what I would describe in my mind as, oh, he's a sociopath. Like they really gets out of violence, the kind of facial expression, the lack of emotions. The only time he really gets excited is when he has to kill somebody. And there is no, even when he's not in a fight or whatever, it doesn't seem very turbulent. His mindset is just generally like, oh, who can I kill next? For now, at least. For now, that's the vibe I got. Like, he just wants to find the next opponent and to kill. That's the impression I had thus far. So I see this man as being very cold and, you know, a sociopath, a bit scary. I would definitely not want to meet him in real life, definitely. But also I want to see what happens when he gets to actually meet our main protagonist. And toward the end of these, in the last 2 issues, I was very, very excited because we do get, let's say without any spoilers, but we get to a very special encounter. It was like, okay, what's next? I'm curious now. And volume 7, I think by now I have come to associate Vagabond with quality. This volume I really enjoyed, probably more than volume 6. I also cherish the fact that we do get back to Musashi. Musashi is Musashi Miyamoto. Let's call it Miyamoto, it just sounds better. So we're back to with Miyamoto. We see what he's been up to, because he's been mostly absent in the last 2 volumes, and I was kind of excited to see him again. I was like, oh, here you are. So I was very happy to catch up with him. So now I'm curious to see when the two, Miyamoto and Kojiro, will come heads to heads, because I think we're approaching that part of the story. I'm really eager to get to the fight, to see what happens, but I generally found myself like, oh, so happy to see Miyamoto again, and I just want to know now. I think I will prioritize potentially finishing what it's out of Vagabond. I know that there are 12 volumes out, so I'm volume 7, so I need 8. So I got another 5 volumes, and yeah, I'm gonna try and prioritize that. Probably I'm gonna finish it in 2025 at this point, because I don't think I can read 5 volumes in the next month before the year concludes. But yeah, we were back with Miyamoto, and I know that this is an uncompleted series. I just wanted to ask you guys if you've read these, if it really feels like Berserk, where I was left after Berserk with the feeling of, oh, this is incompleted. People told me, oh, no, it's uncompleted, it feels finished. No, that's not true. That's not how I felt at all. It really mismatched my feeling I had with Berserk. I mean about Miura's work, not the continuation without him. So does Vagabond feel the same? I know that the mangaka is not dead. They're not off, so we might hope for something more in the future. But I just wanted to understand what you thought, if you felt complete after volume 12, or if it's like a bit like Berserk left open. So yeah, let's see how that goes. But to be fair, Vagabond, the journey, seeing Kojiro's story, even if I do not love Kojiro or I do not necessarily root for him, I'm actually a bit scared of him, is really cemented my love for Vagabond. So I am invested, I'm ready to continue on and see what happens next. But guys, that's all I've read in the last 5 months. Yeah, it's not much considering how much I used to read, but I'm doing my best considering that life has been absolutely hectic. I might do a bit of like I don't really speak about my private life on YouTube. I don't think that's the right place to do so, but also I do cherish the time we spend together, and I do realize that I do not have much time to film, edit, put up videos, or even read these days. So I might do like a brief catch up of what's been happening and why I'm so busy, and so I can read less. Rest assured, it's just a period. I will go back to have more time eventually, and I definitely there are so many series that I want to prioritize, keep reading. But what is your TBR for the rest of the year? What has been your favorite series of the year? What has been your first best comic of the year? And I do need now to go and watch Doradoro the anime. Now that I finished the manga, I can. And yeah, I need to continue Vagabond, Banana Fish, One Piece. So much. I want to wait for Lady Mechanica new volume to come out. Exciting times in the future whenever I get around to reading all of those. If you're new, guys, I would love for you to subscribe, stick around, join the small community, and I will see you next time. Take care of yourself. Ciao!